He has been called a war criminal, lambasted by those pro-Palestinian protesters in our country and hundreds of thousands of demonstrators in his own. But you know, through it all the criticism and the attacks, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stood firm, unwavered in his determination to protect his nation, forged for the Jewish people from the Holocaust. What comes next? Mike Pompeo is with us, a former Secretary of State, former director of the CIA, also a Fox News contributor. First, Mr. Secretary of State, the decapitating of Hezbollah leaders in those astounding attacks in Lebanon, Sinwar taken out. Do you see this as Netanyahu's Churchill moment, where he even resisted the Biden administration telling him don't go into Rafah, and if he listened, Sinwar would potentially still be alive?
Well, Eric, there's no doubt about it. If the Israelis had followed the guidance, the demands and the threats from the United States of America, the Hezbollah leadership, the Hamas leadership, political leadership, Haniya was negotiating for the Hamas Iranian terrorists, they'd all still be alive, and the threat on Israel and the United States of America would still be out there. So good on the Israelis from doing what was necessary. But so far, Eric, we've only got what's necessary. It is not sufficient. We need to get the hostages back. None of us should forget that there are still Americans that are held hostage, U.S. citizens. I pray they are all still alive, as with all of the hostages. And the only way to get that is to have the leadership in Iran determine that the costs of continuing this conflict are too high. No matter how many terrorists are taken out on the ground in Gaza or in Syria or in Yemen, as long as in Tehran the leadership believes that it can get away with this, that it can kill Americans, it can kill Israelis, it can conduct terror campaigns of the most barbaric proportion, and there'll be no cost imposed on the regime itself, this conflict will continue. We won't get the hostages home, and Israel will be insecure.
Do you think that the Iranians in Tehran, do you think they're recalculating at all, or do they see that they can potentially get away with this with all their terrorist support?
Well, I think they've learned a lot, Eric. I think they've learned, one, that their missile system is wholly ineffectual against the amazing defenses that, frankly, Israel, with the support of the U.S. military, has provided to Israel. They've fired the largest ballistic missile attack in the history of the world and did relatively little damage inside of Israel. So I think they're rethinking their capacity to inflict pain directly from Iran. But make no mistake about it, their core intention, the wiping Israel from the face of the earth and then following that by the elimination of the United States of America, that statement they have made for many, many years has not been deterred, has not been changed, and the regime is intent on accomplishing that. And to date, all the Biden administration has done is it says, we fear escalation. We're happy to negotiate with you to try and get you to stop your nuclear program. But the Iranians have continued to enrich, to build out that program at enormous risk to the United States of America. And they now have almost $30 billion with which to do that because the Biden administration has refused to enforce the sanctions that were put in place during the Trump years.
Has that just emboldened the Iranians and the regime to continue its terror ways?
Yeah, it's emboldened them as a practical practitioner's matter. We've seen that, right? October 7th is a direct result of them feeling like the U.S. wouldn't respond. The hundreds of rockets that have rained in from the north, keeping the Israelis from going back to their homes in the northern part of Israel. That's just their feeling free to go do that. And their continuation of their nuclear program, same thing. They're building, they perceive little risk. There's no reason for the Iranians to change course absent U.S. unapologetic defense of America and helping Israel defend itself as well.
Israel and the Prime Minister and Defense Minister Gallup have said that the Israelis will respond to those recent Iranian attacks. Do you think they will go after the nuclear program? Do you think they will go after the oil fields? Or has there been some deal cut with the Biden administration to try and not do that because of the election?
I don't think there's any doubt that the Israelis are under enormous pressure from the United States. We only need to believe some of the reporting we've seen that the Americans have actually leaked Israeli actions, right? American intelligence talking about what Israel might do. Eric, I don't know what targets they'll go for. I don't know how Israel will decide to respond, but I am convinced of this. The Israelis understand this is an existential threat to their nation. 1948 is the creation of the state, and the adversaries in Iran want that to go away. They're going to stay at this and do the necessary to protect and defend themselves, and they should be doing it without Vice President Harris talking about this being a potential genocide in Gaza. That just fundamentally indecent and misunderstands who it was. It was the Iranians that caused all of the grief for the innocent civilians in Gaza. And until there is a resolution that gets security for them and for the globe, the Gulf State region, the Gulf State countries too, are going to see themselves as needing to hedge because the United States has simply refused to support its ally in the region.
And finally, if the vice president is elected as president, do you fear or do you worry about what type of message that could send to Tehran, especially to people like you, John Bolton, Brian Hook, the former president, who apparently are under an assassination plot by Tehran?
Yeah, Erica, it's all green light. She will continue to do precisely what Barack Obama did, what President Biden has done, and what she's done as the vice president, to see the group that is insider-run as moderates, as someone that you can negotiate with instead of a nation that only understands power and risk, to starve them, to put pressure on the regime, starve its power, and create a model which builds the deterrence that we had for 4 years, Eric. You talk about assassination attempts here inside the United States. The Biden administration has done far too little to convince the Iranians to stop, not just doing it, but threatening to do it against former senior American officials and, frankly, non-government officials, too, here in the United States. It's been a bad policy. It's put America at risk, and I am very hopeful that we will turn the page in January and go back to a model which can actually protect the American people.
America at risk by Iran, says the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us on this Sunday.
Thank you. Bless you. Have a good day.
Good to see you.